All right, welcome back to another episode of the New Mexican Sports Podcast, the Sports Den, right, James? I keep forgetting the name of the podcast. The
Yeah,
Sports
something
Den?
like that. Den of Sports. I don't know.
Something
You
like
know,
that.
you're,
I am here. I'm the New Mexican Sports Editor, Will Weber, as always, joined by James Barone. James and I have survived almost the entire summer. James, look, we only have a month to go
we're
before the start of two-a-days.
2 weeks away from 2-a-days, right? Or is it 3 now?
August 4th. August 4th.
That's right.
Which, by the way, I found out is the birthday of one of our guests today. So we can get into that. While you were pre-game to this podcast, you were having a hard time with your audio. I got to learn a little bit about our guests. So
Wait, one of our guests, I thought one of our podcasters also had that birthday.
yeah, that is my birthday as well. Yes.
Yeah.
Which
It took me a second to figure that part out.
And I was enlightening her that my childhood hero, one of my childhood heroes, John Riggins, was also born on August 4th. So, which I think Jeff Gordon, Roger Clemens, and I think Barack Obama were all born on August 4th. So there you go.
I just want to know from Michael and Brittany, do they know any of those people that he just mentioned? Just to age us out.
Sounded familiar.
Yeah.
What's that?
The first one sounded familiar.
Okay.
All right. Well, look, we are coming up on August 1st, which is hard to believe, the 5-year anniversary of the death of J.B. White. Really one of the most beloved basketball players to ever come out of the city of Santa Fe. James, I know you knew him really well, but this weekend is a big event for the J.B. White Foundation, which has survived in his wake and done a lot of great things, which brings us to our two guests, Britney Lucero and Michael Roybal. Michael, I know you do the public information stuff for the tournament and the foundation. And Britney, remind me again, what is your role? You're the tournament director, is that right?
Yes. Okay. I also, sometimes when we do other events, I'm also kind of organizing that, but my main focus is tournaments.
Okay.
Well, I would say tournaments, and then sometimes we do like 3-on-3. We've done men's leagues before as well, so.
And this weekend is big. Look, I know that you've got close to 100 teams, I believe. Is that correct?
94. So, 94. And yeah, going from last year, the second go around, we had almost 60. However, we were planning to do the tournament in April during his birthday, but then that got pushed back due to gym facilities being worked on, all of that good stuff. So we planned for July. So the teams, they were mostly relying on that April date instead of July. So a lot of teams pulled out. So ultimately we had about 44. So yeah, basically we're doubling it this year. So the amount of teams that have entered, we have league teams that have multiple teams in different divisions. We have new teams coming in. Some have competed before, so we're very excited for it.
Yeah, of course, for the uninformed, I'm sure everyone who's watching this knows the backstory of J.B. White. He was a standout basketball player, played for Santa Fe High, Division I recruit, had committed to the University of New Mexico to play for Paul Weir, and his eligibility, had he gone all the way through, would have expired, I think, last year. But James, I know you knew him really well. You covered him quite a bit in high school. And just talk about the legacy that this guy, he really, even 5 years later, carries on to this day.
Well, he was probably the most decorated athlete to come out of Santa Fe High, and probably in Santa Fe, I would say, at least probably in about 40 or 50 years. I mean, the kid really shot up from his 8th grade to 9th grade year. He was a 6'7" guard by the time he got to his junior year. Played on some really good Santa Fe High teams. Even though he didn't play, he was a part of the state runner-up team that lost to Trisco Heritage in 2019, and then he played in those series battles with Capital back in 2019, 2020 when they saw each other 6 times, and ended up being like the second and third seeds, I think, in the tournament that year for state. And then he decided to reclassify, was going to play for UNM in 2020, and then unfortunately that did not happen because he was shot and killed at a party, I think on August 1 of 2020, and which kind of stopped one legacy and then started the other. And I think obviously Britney and Michael here can both talk a little bit more about just, the foundation and really, I mean, for both of you, I'll start with Michael here. Just talk about just kind of the goal of what the foundation wants to do, especially in the wake of everything that happened with JB.
Yeah, thank you. So the foundation has a goal of bringing gun violence awareness to the community. So we're starting locally here in Santa Fe. We spread out a little bit in Albuquerque, and then we want to take this as far as we can take it. So that's one. Two, JB loved sports and loved basketball, so the foundation is very big on giving back to the community. I know in the past the foundation has purchased basketball shoes for those athletes who are unable to get some. So we've reached out with the NMAA. We've worked with them to get athletes the basketball shoes that they need so they can continue to play. And I also know that we help out with registration fees. So if there's an athlete that doesn't have the capability or the means to pay for the registration fees, they can reach out to the foundation. And one of the big things that we're working on too is we have a scholarship in JB's name at UNM. And so we're about $7,000 shy of reaching our goal of 25,000. So once it hits the 25,000, then we can activate the scholarship.
Well, that's a pretty big jump, because if I remember correctly, at the beginning of the year, it was about 5,000. So you guys have made pretty big gains on that as far as endowing it and everything.
Correct. Yeah. I know last year we used some tournament funds to donate into the foundation to try to get it activated and start offering that.
Yeah, and Brittany, on your end, I mean, Michael talked about the basketball side, and obviously that was a big thing for JB. Obviously, that was his career path that he was going to go. For you in your role, especially like you said, you're organizing all these different tournaments that you guys are doing. Are you, even though it's been 5 years, I mean, are you still surprised at how much his legacy still carries and people want to be a part of this?
Oh, definitely, yes. Of course, like with the younger generation coming up, they more so heard about it instead of seeing him play live. So they're gonna hear about it if they go to Santa Fe High. See his big mural up there, his retired jersey, everything like that. So, but it's definitely he's very well still alive in everyone's hearts, especially in all of ours with the foundation, especially his grandmother Jude. So basically this is our second chance to be able to continue his legacy for that. When we had teams sign up, I continuously get phone calls, text messages that they're very excited to play, and that they're very appreciative to keep, or that they are very appreciative that we're carrying on his legacy, and still talking about it, still not letting his name die. So it's very pleasing to know that if they didn't get to see him play live, they're still hearing about it, from older kids, or from those who might have known him personally or his family personally. So,
and I kind of forget too that he was really he really gravitated toward younger kids. I remember
yes.
going to, I think it was Kearney Elementary, and they just had a day for him, and just probably about a couple hundred kids saw him and everything, and they just fell in love with him. And a lot of those kids now are probably in middle school, probably in high school now. So obviously those kids do remember him, and there's still kind of that link there and everything. Do you find a lot of those, the teams, or maybe even the kids who are involved in this tournament, are those the people that he kind of touched a little bit?
I would say definitely yes. We do have some coming from way more north. And we also have some coming from South, Las Cruces area. We also have a team coming from Colorado. So, his name is getting expanded outside of New Mexico. And that's all thanks to, now that we're growing our foundation with our board members, those who live in bigger areas are getting his name out more for the foundation, and hearing about his story, his playing, his contribution to the community, everything like that. So I would definitely say that, with the help of our foundation, again, his name will not die.
Yeah. This is one for both of you, actually. And this is with regards to the foundation, because I think we've seen, especially over the last year or so, it's really starting to pick up steam. I know Jude Voss, obviously JB's grandmother, who's the founder of the foundation. Kind of took her time with this and really wanted to find the right people and the right ways to honor her grandson and obviously find ways to contribute to the community. But I mean, now that she's developed this board of directors and you guys have kind of been given kind of the directives of what they want to achieve now, how much have things kind of picked up here over the last, I'd say 6 months to 6 to 10 months here, really?
I think I'll let Michael answer that.
Yeah, so the board has been put together. Like you said, Jude was very selective as to who she wanted on the board itself, and so this holds a very, very special spot in Jude's heart, if not her whole heart. And so over the past, year, I've worked with her on, getting things announced. We're now holding our first gala in October, which we're super excited for. And so again, the board has a clear outline as to the goals that they want to reach, which is continuing to provide gun violence awareness and materials to our youth here in Santa Fe and throughout the state. We want to continue to reach the youth as far as athletics go, help out with registration fees. The JB White scholarship at UNM, that's something we want to continue to give back. And so, the foundation's rolling full steam ahead, and it's going to be big. Once we get everything set in place, it's going to be massive. And so that's fitting for who JB was and the heart he had.
For sure. Brittany, for you, I mean, you can kind of talk about from the basketball side. I mean, you talked about how much it's grown just in 3 years, this summer tournament here in and of itself. And you also talked about the 3-on-3 tournaments and some of the other adult league tournaments that you guys have been doing. How much are you seeing a significant increase in that as far as people wanting to participate in this, especially now that things are maybe a little bit more stable with the foundation itself?
Yes, definitely. Like that first year, I believe we did only a 3-on-3 and a men's league. And of course, we got more out of it from the men's league, because there's various men's leagues here in Santa Fe. So we got more from that than we did the 3-on-3. But yeah, definitely it's grown over the years. Like I said, last year we had about 44 teams and now having 94 teams. I'm sure we definitely would have had more. However, registration closed. So
Yeah.
I'm sure we definitely would have had more. We're in talks of having a bigger tournament next year in Phoenix, in collaborations with one of the board members who has his own AAU team as well, who compete against those bigger AAU teams who travel, everywhere. So we're hoping that can happen. We would expect more in attendance from that, those to be able to hear more about JB's story, more contributions and donations to us to be able to give back to the community. Like Michael said, with the scholarship, with the gift giving, registrations, anything like that. So I'm hoping that we can be able to push through with that as well.
For sure. With that said, considering where you guys were last year at this time, you said you had about 40 some teams. I'm sure it's a lot easier to organize and to coordinate that type of a tournament when you've got fewer teams. When you start to get into the 90s, what are the biggest challenges with that?
Definitely the scheduling, because like I said, we have like club teams who have multiple teams in each division. So, and sometimes there's only one coach for every 3 teams that there is. So like being able to schedule that around, with the out of state team we had coming in, being able to work around their schedule from them traveling to be able to play the next morning or the next day. Also for local teams who have started, leagues with multiple teams as well. So I would definitely say scheduling was the hardest part with doing this. But thankfully everybody's been very understanding of that, with the scheduling conflicts, being able to schedule them. Let's say maybe they were hoping to stay in Santa Fe, but they're having to go play in Pojoaque. So thankfully they're very understanding of that, being able to, there's a JV team playing at Pojoaque at 1:00, and then their next game is, in Santa Fe for, let's say 3. So, being able to rush from there to to Santa Fe, we're very appreciative that they're understanding of that.
What about for you, Michael, especially from the officiating standpoint? I mean, you saw the stories that we had last week where we're talking about the struggle to bring officials into the fold, and a tournament like this, I'm sure, does it kind of underscore that a little bit more, or were you pretty confident in being able to find enough guys to be able to help out this weekend?
JB White holds a very special name here in northern New Mexico. So once I send the email out to the fellow referees, letting them know, hey, the JB White Foundation is having its basketball tournament. Let me know if you guys want to work it. I get a lot of responses, and luckily this year I got a lot of responses from Albuquerque too and surrounding areas. There were some complications, the behind the scenes. There's the New Mexico Athletic Association State Clinic, which is taking place this weekend too. So that tied up a lot of officials, but for the most part, a lot of guys and girls are willing to come in and work the tournament, which makes it easy. Again, the complication is scheduling. So some people are 1 to 4 and 6 to 8. Other people are 9 to 12, and so it's just working around their schedules. But we'll get it done.
Are you going to be officiating some? Or are you going to be basically just kind of making sure that you just are kind of there more in an administrative role to kind of help fill in, plug in, wherever holes or leaks start to sprout?
I am going to be wearing multiple hats, so I will be helping Britney wherever she needs, and then I will also be officiating some games.
Yeah. What about that too? I think Britney, you kind of mentioned it to me before we got on the air and everything a couple of days ago that you're going to be bouncing around from place to place, and you need somebody coordinating things at each venue and everything.
So
talk about that.
Yeah, thankfully I have a very loving and caring husband who would at the drop of a hat do that for me. He did it for me last year when a week in advance we were told we couldn't use Santa Fe or Capital due to a tournament the week before having major complications with them. So a week in advance we were told, scrambling for gyms. Ultimately we were able to secure School for the Deaf and Powake. So my husband, with no rush, no anything like that, said, I'll run it for you at Powake. Just stay here. It doesn't make sense for you to go back and forth. You wouldn't be able to get anything done if you had done that. So same thing for this year. He's going to be running it for me in Powake Friday, Saturday. Very thankful for that. As for Santa Fe and Capital, I do have another fellow contributor who volunteers her time a lot with the foundation. She did it last year at School for the Deaf when I needed somebody to just sit at the gate and, be able to give bands out, did merch, concession, anything like that. So she will be helping me out at Capital, and I'll just have to go back and forth from Santa Fe to Capital. But I think just with the system that we got going with all the volunteers, we've teamed up with Santa Fe High School football, Capital High School basketball, and Powake basketball. All of their programs, the football and both basketball programs will be volunteering, players and parents their time to be able to help our foundation. And in return, we are giving their programs donations for whatever they choose to use for it. So I'm very thankful for that. So yeah, just with the system that we have going, it's going to be less stressful on me. However, there's always going to be something going on. So.
No, for sure. The other thing too, and I know this is something Judah told me about is, basketball is going to be kind of at the forefront and everything. But I know there will be some other merchandise that they're selling in coordination with the foundation and everything, especially with regards to gun violence and everything. I guess I'll leave it to you, Michael, to talk a little bit about just some of those other things you're going to be doing outside of just the basketball stuff for this weekend.
Yeah, so we've partnered up with our local law enforcement partners. Last year, we had Santa Fe Police Department, who was proudly there. They teamed up with New Mexicans against gun violence. And so with that, they handed out free gun locks to anybody who wanted them. We had material from Santa Fe Police Department. They handed out little badges, little lanyards. They were there to answer any questions. And so we're really appreciative of, our law enforcement partners who are partnering with us to continue to stay involved and spread awareness.
For sure. And remind me again, especially when it comes to the proceeds and all the stuff, from the stuff that you guys get from the registration fees, and obviously I'm sure there'll be concessions at at each of the schools and all of that. But all this money is going toward the foundation, correct?
Absolutely,
Correct.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Anything that we get, it just goes back into the foundation and back to the donations that we give. Um, like I said, to those that help us volunteer, uh, to the scholarship, the gift giving, registration. We do the shoe drive when basketball starts for all of New Mexico. So everything goes back to the community, and that's what we reiterate a lot, is that's what JB liked doing, giving back to his community. He posted it. So that's very famous, that a lot of people see, is just giving back to the community. So
No, for sure. Uh, I guess one thing I did want to ask both of you, and this is just in terms of just more the personal side of this, if you guys could both just talk about kind of your relationship with JB, and obviously how that impacted you into helping out now with the foundation.
I'll let Brittany go first.
okay. So I was born and raised here in Santa Fe. I have an older sister, two younger brothers. My dad did AAU with all four of us until I learned that I like supporting more than playing. So, the organizing, everything like that. So when my dad started Santa Fe Style with my younger brother, um, we had all of our main guys on there. My brother Jordan Campos, TJ Sanchez, Chano Herrera, Brandon Saiz, Carlos Cesaro, everyone from Santa Fe and Capital, and eventually we found JB. So the boys, they all hit it off pretty good. And then eventually, JB started getting that exposure and started going to the Albuquerque school. I'm sorry, the Albuquerque AAU teams. So I've known JB for a really long time. I've known him since he was about 8 or 9, and that's when the boys started playing together. So, it was very heartbreaking to hear the news about that. I do remember seeing Jude that same exact day. She didn't have to say anything. I just gave her a hug. There wasn't anything to talk about, because we knew that it wasn't a time for talking. It was just more time for just appreciative of just being together, and everything like that. So being a part of his life and being a part of his family's life, I'm very thankful for that, because my brother, him and my brother were very close. So I would see him regularly at my house, just hanging out with my brother, catching up, him telling me how excited he was about attending UNM, and playing for that team that he's always been hopeful to play for, to be closer to Jude so she can be able to watch him play. So it was very heartbreaking hearing about it. Like I said, he died August 1st. My birthday is August 4th. Didn't celebrate that year. There was no need to. It was just more of just appreciating the moment, being there for his friends who just lost him, his grandmother who just lost him, his family, his brothers, his sisters. So I'm very thankful that I was able to meet him and to still be in his family's life, especially very close to Jude, and just doing this for her. It's very nice. It's very pleasing to be volunteering my time that I know that goes to something that gives back to the community.
So I met JB in the course of officiating. So I was a very young official at the time, and I ran into him. He was playing for Ortiz Middle School. And so I remember coming home and telling my family, there is this incredibly athletic child playing at Ortiz. And I didn't know his name then, but then, we all got to know it. And so I kind of grew up with JB, and as he progressed through his basketball career, I progressed through my officiating career. And it's funny because he would always call me Mr. Ref. Even though he knew my name, he would call me Mr. Ref. So even in the high school realm, he'd be, hey, Mr. Ref, you know, even though he knew me personally and we got to know each other. But, it's those things that really make basketball officiating great for me, is developing these relationships with these athletes and these kids and watching them grow and having these conversations with him on and off the court, talking about, his progress and going to UNM and what he's most excited for. And one thing I can say is he stressed the love for his family and for his community a lot of the time. And, you'd ask him about certain things, and it was never an excuse with him. He would always say, I got these little ones I got to inspire. These little ones are watching me. These little ones came to watch me play. And to me, that was very humbling, watching JB go through what he went through, he went through a lot. There was a lot of, I don't want to say torture, but there was a lot of hate that was,
Yeah.
broadcasted amongst him. And, it wasn't just children, it was also adults, which is very disheartening to see. And, that's one of the main emphasis we have going on with our tournament this weekend is we have a zero tolerance. If nobody's in alignment with our goals and vision as the foundation, we will simply ask them to leave. And so that's one thing Jude wanted me to stress on is, talking about the stress and the hate and the public shame that, people put onto JB as he was progressing, moving on in his career. And so we have a firm stance on that throughout our tournament is like, if you can't stand with our goals and alignment, you're going to be asked to leave. And that goes for coaches, players, and spectators. So, we thank you for publishing those articles, touching on topics that discuss fan behavior and, some player behavior, but we're thankful for that. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome about that. And I guess last thing I'll have here for you guys, and maybe this is more for you, Michael, and everything, just talk about, I know you kind of hinted at the gala and everything, and I'm sure if there are people here who see this, I might be interested in that. How can they reach out to the foundation and get involved if they do?
Yeah, so we have our first ever gala taking place this October here in Santa Fe at the Santa Fe Convention Center. They can reach out to us on all of our social medias. It's the JB White Foundation. That's also our web address is JB White Foundation. So just Google it. Send us a message through social media. We'll get back to you as quick as possible. But if you're looking to support the foundation and the cause and pretty much the community as to what we have going on and the goals we have set, we encourage you to reach out to us, the JB White Foundation, on all platforms.
Alrighty, well, Britney, Michael, I really do thank your time, and Will, I thank you for joining in on the conversation there. You were very, I couldn't get in a word edgewise.
I know. This reminds me of the Lobo basketball coach. When he was on.
Now I know how it feels a bit to just stare at you and just realize you're just not going to jump in, are you?
Hey, at least I didn't sit here and eating lunch or anything or doing something weird. Like, yeah.
Matt would have probably just would have blocked you out and everything.
Yeah, just fade to black.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. It's a wonderful thing you're doing this weekend, and it's really cool to see how big this tournament is getting. And it's becoming what I think we all envisioned it would be when it first started. And it shouldn't have taken 5 years to get to this point, but hopefully this is something that keeps getting bigger as we go along.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I got to imagine if you guys keep getting more and more teams, I mean, does this mean you're going to have to look for a fourth venue? Are you going to have to throw St. Mike's into that as much as you guys want to?
I'm very hopeful maybe in the future we're able to build a facility of our own that accommodates, at least 8 to 10 courts. Because being around AAU all my life, I remember one time I went to Phoenix and there was just one facility, every single team played there. There was about 10 courts filled with that. So and they were full-size courts, not even just half courts, full-size. So I'm hopeful in the future that can be something that can be arranged for us. We wouldn't have to go through the hassle of doing agreements, finding we would have to find security, but, being able to do it on our time instead of like something else that we're waiting for an approval, something like that. So I'm very hopeful in the future we can be able to do that. But for the meantime, I'm sure we'll have to find another facility.
For sure. Well, again, like I said, thank you guys for your time and everything, and look forward to seeing how things play out this weekend. Obviously, not to hint at what we're going to be doing, but we'll be doing a nice little feature on you guys for this weekend.
James Barone is offering to become a volunteer referee at the event. I think that's what you're getting.
I think that
but everything's on the record.
Our publishing.
What's that?
That's going to be a good article. A day as a referee. We'll get you in there. We'll get you some strike.
It's going to be hard with a whistle in one hand and a notebook in the other because everything's on the record. Trust me.
If you're willing to try it, we'll put you in. I got a few games that I I got to fill. So if you're available, James, I'll put you on this weekend.
That's awesome.
Great. First thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna call over the back just to make it officially a call.
Right.
Maybe he'll just have to do like the 3rd, 4th graders to get a head start, to get a fresh start
just
for it.
work me in slowly. Yeah, don't throw me into the deep end of the pool. That
Will, he'll need a partner. So if you're available, we'll put you on the game too.
First thing I would do is I would eject somebody just for the heck of it. I've always wanted to throw someone out. Like, here, gone.
As an official standpoint, it's not a good feeling.
Yeah. It'll probably be me he tosses.
Right.
His own companion.
James and I would work together. We'd call games and we'd like, James, I don't think that was a very good call. We'd argue during games with each other. That's what we could do.
Yeah, Mike, you'd have to come in there and like escort us out before the game would even end. So
I'll have to be your third partner and really just mentor you guys through the process.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I can already see the mental eye rolls that you'll be throwing at us already.
I try not to make them obvious, but sometimes it gets.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for coming on, and we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and wrap it up. But thanks, guys, for joining us, and best of luck this weekend.
Thank you very much.
Man, James, look, we touched on this a minute ago, but 5 years. It's been 5 years since that happened. And like, where were you? I know it happened in the middle of the night, but what are your recollections of that night when it happened?
It was something I was just thinking about when you brought that up. And I mean, it was, and the strange thing was it's in the heart of the pandemic. So there's really not much going on. You get up on, and I remember it was a Saturday morning. And you're just thinking, okay, it's just another day. What are we going to do today to get the section done? And then I actually was asleep, and our boss, Phil Casals, called me to let me know about it. And then when I looked at my phone, I must have had about a half dozen text messages and missed calls from people telling, that were basically, asking me like, what happened to JB? And then Phil told me that. And, it was the strangest thing. I knew I had to get my ass up and get to work right away. But I think I took about a minute, and I just remember rolling over in my bed and just being like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to get up. It was pretty damn depressing, especially in that situation there. And then when you started hearing the details about what happened, it was just, it was a heartbreaking day, and it seemed like it was just one of many heartbreaking stories that we heard during that time because of the pandemic. But when it's, a kid like JB, who had the future, his future was he had his future ahead of him, and especially going to UNM. And granted, that would have been fun considering that they weren't playing in New Mexico that year, but he worked his butt off to graduate early from Santa Fe High, and he was trying to do what he could to keep some sense of normalcy. He was still going to going to outdoor courts and working out and stuff, but I think for a lot of us, I think he was a little lost, as we all were, because of the changing nature of how we were living at the time, and just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. And, it's still sad, and it's still jarring. I mean, when you think about it, 5 years, that's wow. I mean, 5 years, it doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it has been.
Yeah. Cause we're in the business of, we're storytellers. That's what we do.
Yeah.
There's the newspaper and other media entities. They have actual journalists. I don't feel like we're real journalists. We just go out and watch games, report on the fun stuff. And when something like that happens, a real life event with a person that we both know, especially someone that young, it's just, and that kid, in a lot of ways, he was a polarizing figure. It was surprising how many people had negative things to say about him. And then even when it happened. Even when it happened, people were questioning, well, what's he doing out in the middle of the night during the middle of a pandemic when you're supposed to be inside? It's like, can we keep our eye on the ball here? This kid just lost his life. Yeah. And that's the story about the tragic end for a kid who was in a lot of ways, one of the best basketball players the city of Santa Fe has ever seen.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that you hit the nail on the head. One of the most talented basketball players we've ever seen here. Maybe even in the, one of the, I would put him up there somewhere in the top 10, maybe top 20 in the state, regardless. and it just, I think it was a bit of a lightning rod too, because I think it forced people to kind of maybe re-examine how they treated him. I mean, there was a lot of negativity that year. It's funny to think. I mean, just 6 months earlier, he was dealing with a lot of catcalling from the fans out there, even the student body, like we mentioned before. The near fight at Capitol was pretty jarring, and you could kind of tell that a lot of the negativity was kind of wearing on him, and he wasn't used to that. He's not that kind of kid that, he was a cocky kid because he knew he could play ball, but he wasn't one of those guys that was kind of in your face about it, and off the court, he was a really, he was just I wouldn't say necessarily quiet, but he was a very composed young man for his age, and some of that is just because of the circumstances he grew up in. But I would have never thought that if you told me that in February that he wouldn't have been there, and 6 months later, I'd have been like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we all had different roles that day. I know your job was different than mine that morning. Mine was to follow the UNM lead, and my first phone call was to Paul Weir. And he's not a guy to hide his emotions, and he was pretty emotional that day. I only talked to him for a minute or two, and he was on his way to Santa Fe. And he I don't know if it's true or not, but he claimed to have been one of the first ones to arrive at Jude Voss's house and be at her side. But Paul was shaken up by it, because I think in signing JB White, he landed the big in-state recruit, which who knows what his career would have been at UNM, because he was in the same recruiting class as Javonte Johnson, and he always likened JB to what Javonte was. And Javonte was a starter, but he was never a huge impact player. Maybe JB is that guy. Maybe, statistically speaking, he probably transfers out of UNM after a year or two and goes on to somewhere else. Or he could have been that 4 or 5 year guy who stuck around and been the foundation for what Paul Weir wanted to do. But man, it's just such a bizarre time. And talking to Paul about the impact it had, and then of course you go through the pandemic and they shut everything down, and guys are really struggling just to make it through. It's really sad to think about what could have been, but just we'll never know now.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that the whole pandemic angle about it, because it even impacted, the funeral service for him and everything, because people had to be, we still had to adhere to the social distancing measures that we had at the time. People were masked up. They only allowed I think so many people at the church, and everyone was pretty spread out. So in a normal situation, that's probably a place where it's just packed. Or maybe you go to you hold the funeral session at Santa Fe High, because obviously that was his home for 3 years. It would have been a totally different situation. But at the time, I mean, I think if anything, I think some of maybe the grieving that continues on now is probably associated with the fact that it never really got to grieve, in the middle of the pandemic, because there was so much insanity going on. So just so much uncertainty. You really didn't get that chance to really I guess for lack of a better word, unleash. Just to let it all out. It kind of comes out in drips and drabs. Since then.
Yeah, it's just a weird time, that whole pandemic. Things like kids lost a year of school, and it really kind of slowed things down. And to have, I mean, let's face it, it was one of the biggest tragedies the city of Santa Fe has seen, at least with a sports angle, that I can remember. You and I have both worked in Santa Fe as sports writers for the better part of a quarter of a century, and that one incident really shook things. It's kind of changed the direction of the way a lot of people look at things now. So, look, you can't even walk into Toby Ball Gym without being reminded of him. It's getting to the point now where, to a high school kid, 5 years is ancient times, and so
it is.
Eventually, these younger kids are going to look at JB White, and it'll become almost like this weird mythical feature, like Ivanhead. People think Ivanhead is the title of a stadium. Ivanhead was an actual person.
Yeah.
JB White, the JB White Foundation. Eventually, someday, people won't even know who that is. They'll just know the name, but they won't know the identity.
The person behind it.
Right, exactly. And so hopefully that's what these people are trying to do this weekend, is to keep his name out there and let him know.
No, absolutely. And I think, we got to give credit to Jude Voss Again, JB's grandmother, the founder of this foundation. She's really taken this on with a full head of steam. It took her a couple of years to get there, and some of that I'll probably, I guess, is probably it's some of it somewhat pandemic related, but I also think too she didn't really she kind of had ideas, but she didn't know exactly how she wanted to go about honoring her son and kind of bringing some important topics to the table, especially when it comes to gun violence and gun awareness, especially amongst teenagers and everything. But she finally found, I think she's finally found kind of the platform that works. And obviously we've seen in the last year, or actually really the last 10 months, the foundation, you're starting to see them really dig its teeth into this community and starting to do some meaningful things. Obviously the Gala, that we'll see in October, this tournament. I mean, when you're getting close to 100 teams for a tournament like this, that's pretty impressive. And I think a lot of that is the work that that Jude put in. And let's be honest, I think at least in the AAU circuit, he was a known commodity. A lot of coaches around the city and in the region, and even from a national standpoint, knew who JB was. And so it kind of resonates a little bit when you hear that there's a tournament in honor for him. I think it brings a lot of people to the table, and they want to be a part of that.
Well, now the next thing moving forward is seeing you as an official doing a first-person story about refereeing the game.
No, man. I'm busy. I'm busy writing, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, that'd be great. Hey, I did a first-person story about being a bat boy at an Isotopes game, and that was distracting.
Yeah, the worst. Well, that was because the uniform didn't fit, man.
Right. I'm in the dugout trying to take notes as I'm doing the bat boy stuff, and I got catcalled the entire game. So, which I'm sure you will when you're officiating games.
Oh, I'm sure I will, especially at those youth games. Those youth games. Some of those parents are probably kids that I used to write about, and they're like, "It's not as easy now, huh, writer boy?"
Yeah, it's that's the thing is we've done a lot of work on the officiating in the last couple of weeks, but you could not pay me enough to be an official. There's no way. I've seen, and you and I've gotten to know the officials.
You gotta. I mean, we're fairly thick-skinned, I think, for the most part, but man, you got to have a special layer on top of that when you're an official, because I've heard some of the stuff, and it's not just, I mean, it's the fans, it's the coaches, even the players, and you're just like, geez, man, all I did was just make a call. It wasn't like I sat here and pressed a button and, nuke somebody. It's just basketball. It's just baseball, but that's how people are nowadays. It just, everybody's got to have a reason to rage at something.
Well, we're almost through the All-Star break. We're almost through the summer, which I know the All-Star break comes at a terrible time for a lot of people, especially arguably Wednesday of this week when this podcast is really getting out there.
What is it? The slowest sports day of the year, right?
Yeah. The only thing going on tomorrow is the Mountain West Media Days for football. That's when we find out just how lowly the Lobos will be picked this year.
That's true.
Yeah. They tried to make a splash today. We're recording this on a Tuesday. They unveiled their new uniforms for next season, which they look exactly like the uniforms from every other year. So
they have
a thicker grayer stripe down the gray pants. So that's about all.
It's not really silver anymore. It's just more gray.
Yeah. So once we get through the football stuff, then we can get back to talking about your Red Sox, who have won 10 games in a row going into the All-Star break.
Hey, man, hottest team in baseball right now. Of course, that'll change once the season begins again on Friday.
Yeah, that's and then of course we have the Fuego who are winding up their season, so we're almost done with those guys.
Yeah, they won in July yet? I mean, they don't seem to like July.
They have not won a single game in July. Here we're doing this on July 15th, and they are 0 for July. They haven't won since June 30th. So
we should compile what their July record is, especially the last 2 years. It's ridiculously bad because they had that 16-game losing streak that happened last year.
Yeah.
And it started at the end of June, but it went through most of, or at least the first half of July.
Yeah. They had the All-Star game for the Pecos League over the weekend.
That's right, on Monday,
Garden
right?
City, Sunday
Yeah.
in Garden City, Kansas. And that's the thing. I'm surprised. There's actually some Fuego fans out there. They get mad at us when we don't do those daily updates. And I've tried telling them. There's at least 2 people who've emailed me why we haven't been doing those. It's like if the Fuego don't supply the stats, it's hard for us.
What can we do?
They can't just say they won or lost a game. We just
but why aren't you there, Will? Why aren't we there?
Yeah, why didn't I dedicate 4.5 hours of my day to go watch the Fuego lose 26-11? That's true.
That's a great football score, but it's bad for baseball.
Yeah, which, by the way, the New Mexican was the chief sponsor for the Fuego last weekend. They had a game last Saturday.
Right. Yeah,
was Santa Fe, New Mexican night at the Fuego game, which
Yeah,
you and I did not attend.
You weren't there though, and
Neither
neither
one
was
of us
I.
went. Yeah, it's funny. They opened the doors for the New Mexican for once, and neither one of us want anything to do
Well,
with
I went last year. I did my part last year, but this year I figured, Will's got it this time.
No.
Matt was there for us though. Matt was there for the pot. Yeah, see, even Matt's shaking his head telling us no.
Yeah.
So obviously you can tell how dedicated we were to even going to a Fuego game just to watch, not even to cover it.
If they let us throw out the first pitch or maybe like take batting practice, I'd consider it, but I don't. We're not getting that invitation anytime soon. So, but
Dude, it would actually technically it would be first bats, and what you would have to do is you'd have to step in against the starting pitcher, and you know he's going to drill you.
yeah,
You know it will. He's going to come high and tight on you.
Exactly. I'll take one right in the ribs. Let's do it. Let's get it over with. Come on, let's see it. I played baseball.
Yeah, they go high and tight on me, and they just go over my head.
Right. Like who's letting the bad boy hit? Come on. Oh man. All right. So
Isn't it Pepper?
Yeah. Well, that puts a wrap on this show, and it was a good one. That was a good couple of guests we had on this week. So
that was. It was a good episode, and actually for once it'll be less than an hour, I think.
Close. Yeah, we're closing in on 60 minutes here, but but thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And as always, if you have any story ideas, don't text me, text James. Text
of course.
With all the ideas.
Yeah. Well, Will wants nothing to do with that. So
I'm too busy monitoring the Lobo football uniforms as we go.
And watching Angels games too. Don't forget that.
Angels games, who, by the way, they're only 2 games under 500 now. Coming out of the All-Star break, they go to Philadelphia and they go play, I believe, the Mets. And then they have a 4-game series against the Mariners. So in the next 10 days, I'm going to know if my team's a seller or a buyer at the All-Star break or at the trade deadline. So we'll see.
Well, keep hope, man. That's all you need to do. Keep hope alive.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you next week for another podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
Take care.